Guys, today we are going to discuss different kind of proteins which are which are involved in the muscle contraction and they can regulate the muscle contraction. Okay, these are the proteins are contractile proteins and regulatory proteins in the muscle. Muscle are the self contractable and excitable. Okay, there are two kind of cells in the human body, which is neuron cells and muscle cells. They can excitable and contract. Neuron cells only can excitable, they do not contract. Muscle cells, they can contract and excitable. Okay, how the muscle is contract going to take place? Okay, if you lift any weight, okay, there is a muscle going to be like contract, the skeletal muscles. Okay, how they can contract? What is the principal mechanism in that? Okay, we are going to discuss about it. Yes. Okay, this is muscle, guys. This is the muscle, guys. Who can give the signals to contract it? Okay, they can neuron cells, if any sensory neurons or motor neurons, especially motor neurons. Motor neurons involve the target the like any action in the muscle contraction. Okay, this is the muscle cells. Okay, and there is a neuron give the pass signals into the muscle cells. This is the neuron, guys. This is axon. This is cell body. This is axon. And this is the dendrites. Neurons are, they can give the chemical into the muscle, guys. That is the chemical we can call, this is neuromuscular junction, guys. Neuromuscular junction, NMJ. NMJ called neuromuscular junction. This is neuron and this is muscle. There is a junction, mean there is a space, synapse we can call neuromuscular junction, that can release a chemical called acetylcholine, ACH, acetylcholine. The chemical is acetylcholine. Okay, this is the neuron is motor neuron, guys. Motor neuron. Motor neuron. Motor neuron give the signal into the muscle. Okay, if the acetylcholine release here, there is a channels or ligand gated channel open here. There are channels, certain channels are open here, ligand gated channel. Ligand gated channel. There are calcium ions are involved to open this channel. Okay, this is the calcium ions are like they can enter or exit, okay, from the channel. In this way, there is a sodium ions or huge sodium ions are enter into the muscle, guys. And potassium ions, there is a potassium channel. There is a potassium channels. They can allow the potassium into exit out. In this condition, the muscle going to contract. Muscle is going to contract in this condition, where the motor neuron, they can give the signal into the muscle. There is a junction between the neuron and muscle, that is muscle cells and neuron, that is neuromuscular junction. In this junction, there is a gap which is chemical release, that is the chemical we can call acetylcholine. Acetylcholine, if the action on this layer, muscle layer, they release calcium ions, they open the ligand gated channel, they release calcium ion. This is the calcium ions involved in the muscle contraction. In that way, there is a sodium ions, huge sodium ions are enter into the muscle, and potassium ions are exit into the muscle. These are the leakage gated channel also open when ligand gated channel open. This is the signals pass throughout the muscle for the contraction. Okay, there are certain proteins they can involve in the contraction, and there are certain proteins they can regulate the contraction, where there is supposed to be muscle contract or regulate. They can decide, the regulator proteins or they can decide. Actually, the contractile protein, they do not contract themselves, but they are involved in the muscle contraction. Okay, what are the proteins involved in this action? We are going to discuss about it. Yes. Yeah, types of proteins, guys. Types of protein in the muscle contraction. Types of proteins in the muscle contraction. Muscle can be contract. Muscle can be excitable. muscle can be contract, muscle can be excitable. These two characters are there in the muscle cell. Okay. Only excitable cells are nerve cells also. Nerve cells, neuron cells are can be excitable. Neuron cells are excitable. Yeah, the types of proteins. There are two types of protein, which is one contractile protein, one regulatory protein. One contractile protein, one regulatory proteins. If come to the contractile proteins, these proteins do not contract themselves, guys. The proteins do not contract themselves, but they are like act to contract other muscle contraction. Mean they are act on muscle contraction. They do not contract themselves. They can support to the muscle contraction. That is, proteins are two. One is actin and another one is myosin. The contractile protein in the muscle contraction two. One is actin, one is myosin. Actin and myosins are the contractile proteins. Okay. Yeah, you have to look into here. This is the protein is contractile protein, which is myosin. Yeah, I will give you. This is the protein. Yeah, this protein, this polymer chain, this is globular polymer chain. Protein is the actin. This is the protein. Monomer of this protein is myosin. Actin and myosin are the like contractile proteins. Actins and myosins are the contractile proteins. Okay, we will going to discuss about these proteins. Yes, and there are regulatory proteins also there, which is they decide when muscle contraction is going to regulation happen or not. They can decide muscle contraction can regulate or not, like contract or not. They can regulate the muscle contraction. That two types of cells are there, regulatory proteins, which is troponin and tropomyosin. The contractile protein are actin and myosin. The regulatory proteins are troponin and tropomyosin. The contractile protein actin and myosin. Regulatory proteins are troponin and tropomyosin. Troponin, tropomyosin, actin and myosin. Don't confuse myosin and tropomyosin. Myosin is the contractile protein, tropomyosin is the regulatory protein. We will going to discuss detailed discussion about these kind of proteins. Yes, thick filament. What is thick filament? Guys, in the muscle contraction, if this is the muscle, skeletal muscle, okay, there are certain spaces, thick filament, there are certain spaces are thin filament. We will going to discuss about muscle structure next class. This is the thick filament as proteins, that is a regulatory contractile protein, which is myosin, guys. Myosin. Thick filament as a protein, contractile protein called myosin. This thick filament is the contractile protein is myosin. So, we will discuss what is myosin. Myosin is the polymer chain. Polymer chain means it is the elongated chain. Okay, polymer is connected different chains. That is the one chain called monomer. One chain is monomer. Mono mean one. Many monomers to become to make polymer chain. Okay, the monomer, the unit which is in the polymer chain called meromyosin. Myromyosin. In the myosin polymer chain, the unit of the myosin polymer chain we can call monomer, that is we can call myromyosin. The monomer name is myromyosin. We will going to discuss. Just look into this. Thick filament, nothing but it is the myosin. Myosin is nothing but it is the contractile protein. Contractile protein. It is the myosin is the long chain. Long chain what we can call polymer. Poly mean many. Polymer mean many. Many is what? Many monomers. Monomer mean it is a single unit of polymer. This is single unit called myromyosin. Got it? Thick filament nothing but it is the myosin. Actin, myosin are the contractile protein. One of the contractile protein, it is located in thick filament in the muscle. There is two bands are there. Thick filament is one, thin filament is one. Thick filament, it is called the contractile protein located in the thick filament called myosin. Myosin nothing but it is the contractile protein. It is the polymer chain. Polymer mean it is the like long chain. Long chain is connected the many monomers. That is the monomer is the single unit of this polymer chain. That is we can call myromyosin. Got it? It is important, guys. Okay. So this is the myromyosin. Yeah, I am going to read again. The polymer chain protein, many monomers proteins called myromyosin. Each myromyosin has two parts, guys. One is globular head, another one is short arm tail. One myromyosin in the polymer unit chain, one myromyosin is the unit which has two parts, one head and another one short arm and tail. Yes, head, heavy myromyosin, head we can call heavy myromyosin and tail we can call light myromyosin. Heavy myromyosin consists of head and short arm. Light myromyosin consists of tail. Yeah, the globular head has active site of ATP, that binding site for the actin filament, guys. We will discuss later. Yeah, look into this picture. This is the monomer. Monomer of myosin, that is we can call myromyosin. Myromyosin has head part, guys. This is head part and this is short arm. This is tail part, guys. Tail part. Head part and arm part we can call heavy myromyosin, HMM. Tail part we can call light myromyosin, LMM. This head part, there is a site we can call ATP binding site. This is the site is available for the attachment of the actin in the muscle contraction. Actin is another contractile protein. That protein is binding together to make muscle contraction. Okay, we will going to discuss. Yes, guys, just look into this. This is the tail part of the myromyosin. number of myromycins together to form this is unit of myromycin, this is head, this is arm, this is tail. Okay, they are together to form in this way muscle contraction like this, like this. Like this. These are the, this is myosin, one unit of myosin we can call myromycin, this myromycin has parts, this is head part as ATP binding site, and this is arm. This ATP binding site of head and arm we can call heavy myromycin, HMM, heavy myromycin, and this is tail part, light myromycin, tail part we can call light myromycin. This is about one of the contractile protein which is myosin. Myosin is the one of the contractile protein, that is contractile protein as polymer chain. This is the polymer chain, many monomers. One monomers we can call myromycin. One monomer we can call myromycin. That is the myromycin has head, ATP binding site located in the head, arm, and this is the tail, guys, tail. This is about the one contractile protein which is involved in the muscle contraction, we can call myosin. Okay, next, thin filament. Okay, in the muscle, if it is, this is muscle, skeletal muscle, I told you this is the like thick filament, this is the thick filament, between that there is a thin filament, thin filament also contractile protein, what we can call actin, and in this actin there are two regulatory proteins also there. In the thin filament, one contractile protein is there, that is named actin, and two regulatory proteins also there in the thin filament, that is troponin and tropomyosin, guys. Troponin and tropomyosin. Thick filament as only contractile protein we can call myosin. Thin filament as one contractile protein and two regulatory protein. Don't confuse thick filament and thin filament. Thick filament only one contractile protein, that is myosin. Thin filament has one contractile protein, two regulatory proteins. One contractile protein named actin, two regulatory proteins are troponin and tropomyosin. Regulatory proteins, they can decide what time they can contract the muscle and what time they can relax the muscle, they can regulate it. Contractile proteins itself involved in the contraction, they do not contract themselves, they involve in the muscle contraction. Okay, yes, we are going to discuss about it, troponin and tropomyosin and actin of the contractile protein. Just look into this picture. Just look into this picture, guys. Yeah, this is what. Just look into this. This is the globular chain. Globular chains are there. This is also polymer. This is the globular chain in pink color, that is actually regulatory protein, we can call actin. Regulatory protein, sorry, contractile protein we can call actin. Contractile protein is associated with two regulatory proteins, that is troponin, tropomyosin. Troponin, actually tropomyosin is like one site, which is tropomyosin is the site which is along with the polymer chain of the actin. Troponin has three sites. Troponin has three sites, that is troponin I, troponin C and troponin T. TPT, this is TPT, and TPI, TPC. Thin filament has two regulatory proteins, one contractile protein. The contractile protein what we can call actin. Okay, two regulatory proteins are troponin, tropomyosin and troponin. Tropomyosin, don't confuse, that is contractile protein, myosin is different. Tropomyosin, which is regulatory protein, is different. Tropomyosin is there in the thin filament. Myosin is the contractile protein which is in the thick filament. That is, myosin is the contractile protein. This is tropomyosin is the regulatory protein which is in the thin filament, that is associated with actin contractile protein. Okay, we are going to discuss each one. Okay, yeah, just look into this. Thick filament, thin filament. Thin filament, it has three proteins, one contractile protein, that is actin, two regulatory proteins, that is troponin and tropomyosin. Okay, that is one actin and troponin and tropomyosin. Monomers of the actin is called globular chain, G-actin. Guys, this is contractile protein, this is also polymer. Actin is the thin filament contractile protein which is polymer, and myosin is the contractile protein in the thick filament, that is also polymer. The myosin polymer chain, the units of the myosin is meromyosin, but here there is a units in the chain, one unit is globular chain, we can call G-actin. It is in filamentous structure, F filament we can call this polymer chain F filament, that is G-actin is the monomer. G-actin is the monomer of this actin filament. F filament, actin is the contractile protein, it is the polymer chain, we can call F filament. In that F filament, the single unit we can call G-actin. G-actin. So this is about contractile protein, and regulatory protein is one is tropomyosin. Tropomyosin hides the sites of the actin which is myosin binds. Guys, if any contraction is going to take place in the thick filament, thin filament, they can slide each other. How they slide each other mean the actin site they can bind to the myosin sites. Myosin monomers are attached to the actin filament. They can extend up to this contraction, mean they can contact each other. There is a ATP site is there in the myosin, right? The head of the meromyosin, ATP site, they can attach to the actin filament, guys. In that way, muscle contraction is going to happen. Okay? Yeah. And tropomyosin and troponin are the regulatory protein. They can hide if they want, if they don't want the contract muscle, they can hide actin filament. Okay, which is regulatory protein tropomyosin. I will explain it. Okay, yeah. Troponin has three parts. TPI, TPT and TPC. TPI, I mean inhibition. There is an interaction of the actin myosin, they can inhibit, TPI. Okay. TPT, it can be tropomyosin, keeps the tropomyosin proper place, TPT. And TPC, it is the calcium ion bind attached to the actin filament for the contraction. We will going to discuss about it, guys. Yes, this is the actin filament of regulatory protein. This is the regulatory protein. It is the polymer chain actin, polymer chain called actin. Actin is the regulatory protein. Regulatory protein. Actin is the regulatory protein. One unit of this actin, we can call G-actin. G-actin. This is in filamentous structure, right? We can call F filament. F filament. We can call it is F filament. F filament. Okay, this is about actin protein which is involved in the contraction. No, actin is the contractile protein, it is not a regulatory protein. Actin is the contractile protein. Contractile protein involved in the contraction. How the contraction is taking place? It is the thin filament, thin filament, okay, thin filament, nothing but, we are going to show it. This is the skeletal muscle, thick filament, and this is the thin filament, the gap. The radius of this gap, they can each other to slide. So in that way the muscle size is going to reduce, that is called muscle contraction. Okay, this is myosin. Myosin is the thin filament, this is actin, thick filament. They slide each other over there. Okay, yeah, what happened in this, how they can slide? Mean this is the contractile protein and this is the contractile protein, again one contractile protein, this is myosin, contractile protein. Myosin also contractile protein. So how they can attach each other? This is the ATP binding site in the head. ATP binding site to bind this actin filament. So if can attach this site, they can push back this actin filament, push back by this myosin filament. In that way muscle going to contract. So there is a regulatory proteins are there, two regulatory proteins are there, that is myosin and tropomyosin and troponin. Tropomyosin, they are elongated with this surface of the G actin protein. This is tropomyosin, guys. This is also chain which is hide. Tropomyosin is the regulatory protein. Tropomyosin is regulatory protein. Regulatory protein which they can hide site of actin filament. Here they can hide, right? For the attachment they can hide site, mean they can regulate what they actually want, contract or relax the muscle. And there is a troponin as there some sites. This is troponin, guys. Troponin are there in the actin filament. 2, 3 troponin are there, 3 sites are there in the troponin. TPI, TPC and TPT. TPI they can inhibit. TPI inhibit the actin myosin binding. Actin myosin binding. TPI. TPC they release calcium ion for the muscle contraction. I told you there is a chemical release from the neuron, motor neuron. With the chemical release they can allow the calcium channel open. In that condition calcium is site there in the TPC part, which is troponin regulatory protein. Okay. TPT actually there are TPI inhibit, TPC release the calcium ion, TPT they can transfer signal into the muscle contraction. Okay. TPT I will give you. Yes, TPT, yeah, TPT it's tropomyosin, keep the tropomyosin proper shape. Yeah, TPT keep the tropomyosin in the surface area of the actin filament proper place. This is about muscle contraction. There are 2 types of proteins, contractile proteins and regulatory proteins. Contractile proteins are myosin and actin. Regulatory proteins are tropomyosin and troponin. Regulatory proteins, troponin has 3 sites, which is TPI, which can inhibit the muscle contraction, which is attachment of head part into the like F filament of the actin. TPT they can give the proper place of the tropomyosin in the actin filament. TPC they can release calcium ions for the muscle contraction. This is all about the contractile proteins and regulatory proteins which are involved in the muscle contraction. Okay, we will going to discuss about sliding filament theory in the muscle contraction in the next class. Thank you so much.